tell everyone what exactly it is that you hate about this hat?
Well, it's not so much a hate thing, but I'm not a Panama Jack fan. And it's not straight. Oh, okay. Yeah, so got this at Myers, and I don't know, I feel kind of lame about it.
Oh, you should tell me what you just said recently.
uh,
Like 2 minutes ago. Tell everyone.
like, oh, the brand Panama Jack. I mean, I don't mean it doesn't mean anything to me. It just kind of like maybe it used to be cool, and now it's not, and then now that I have it, it's even more uncool. Kind of like buying Vans today, as opposed to
Like what, a minivan?
40 years ago. No, like the shoes.
Creeper van?
The skater BMX shoes that used to be cool until
Until old men like you started wearing them?
no, because old men like me have been wearing them. That's what made them cool, actually. You can Google that if you want.
So this is the original, and this is the one that he wants instead. National Bike Travel Weekend. Okay, so this patch is obviously a little bit bigger. Okay, maybe a lot bigger. But it still fits on, you know, this area where it needs to fit. And Michael says that he is okay with it extending down into that little hat band area. So the first step, of course, is going to be to take the old one off. And hopefully it's not glued in place. Let me tell you a little bit about National Bike Travel Weekend. National Bike Travel Weekend was created by the Adventure Cycling Association. Ever seen a bike route sign? You can thank them for that. National Bike Travel Weekend is always the first weekend in June. Michael and I typically take a 3 or 4 day weekend off of work and travel somewhere between 40 and 90 miles from home. This year, we stayed at an Airbnb near Newaygo, Michigan. In 2022, we biked to and camped at Warren Dunes State Park. In 2021, we biked to and camped at Muskegon State Park for the second time. Oh, thank goodness. It is not glued in place. This'll come off really easily. But yeah, like he said, it's not that he hates Panama Jack or anything. I mean, obviously he bought the hat. But National Bike Travel Weekend is a big deal to us. We do it every year that we've known about it. Pick out the old threads. Alright. So this one does have like the iron-on backing to it, but I'd rather not use that just in case we ever want to take this off again. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is make sure that the bottom of the patch here is lined up with this stitching line. I'm going to line up the bottom of the patch with that stitching line there. And of course I'm going to have to pin it in place. So the thing is with like hats is that hats, especially this particular style where they got a really stiff area, you know, like sun hats, they're often really difficult to wash. And anything that's bought used needs to be washed. Ugh, I just bent a pin. So that's not gonna do it. Maybe if I pin the top of the patch where the fabric's a little thinner. Or what if I just started sewing and made sure that this was lined up and then pinned it in place? That's an interesting idea. What's the best thread color for this? Probably, well, that wouldn't look terrible, but what about a teal? Actually, I think the teal might work the best. Teal it is. So I've got a pin here to mark the center. I want to line up this straight edge with this straight edge. So I'm going to put my needle down, put the foot down, and start sewing. I'm using a 3.5 stitch length, which I use for most everything. Oh, another thing, if you have double-sided tape, that will also work. Although, obviously, the tape will still be in there. So, it's really a good thing for... It's a good way to hold the patches on if you're sewing it to something that's somewhat stiff. Not so good for something really lightweight or mushy. Panama Jack was founded by an actual person named Jack, but he was not from Panama. Or Ecuador, where the Panama hat is from, but he did name it, his company, after the Panama hat. So there's like a hat band here, and it's important to make sure that the hat band is pointing up. And it's also important to make sure that I'm not getting the strings stuck, which I have not, so it's all good. But those strings are one of the reasons that he chose this hat, is so that it can't blow away every time it's windy. And we're nearing the beginning again. We'll just get up to that point and back down a little bit. Huzzah! Now, trim the threads.
Awesome. Looks marvelous. More Panama Jack.
Yes! Heck yeah! Black Travel Weekend!
Woohoo! Thank you.
Hello again! Look at that beautiful sun. That's alright, this won't take very long. Today, I'm going to replace the elastic in Michael's pajamas. The first thing that I have to do to these pajamas is, of course, rip out the stitching. Not all of the stitching though, okay? So, there's a couple of stitches here that I put just to make sure that the elastic doesn't twist around while he's wearing them or while it gets washed. I only have to take those out. So, at the center front seam and the back seam. I'm actually going to be taking out the old elastic through the drawstring eyelet hole area. So that's super handy. Elastic does occasionally go bad over time, especially if somebody put it in the dryer. Let's dig out the elastic through the drawstring hole. Ooh yeah, crusty little elastic. Alright, yeah, so the elastic, as you can see, like the, rubbery parts have broken. I guess. The parts that actually make it stretchy. Can you see it's gotten crusty?
You dusty, you musty, you crusty, and you rusty.
Alright, so unfortunately, elastic generally has to be thrown away, not composted. So, we're gonna cut a new piece of elastic. And elastic should generally be like the area of the body that it's gonna go around. I usually cut to that exact measurement with no extra, but then I overlap just a little bit so the elastic is just ever so slightly smaller than that area of the body. So for Michael's lovely 28-inch waist, I'm going to cut 28 inches of elastic. I'm going to send it using the safety pin. I'm going to send it into the belt loop. And I'm going to do the best I can to make sure it doesn't twist while I'm working with it, but that doesn't always happen as nicely as we'd like it to. So afterwards, also, just make sure that it's not twisted. And do also be a little bit careful at the seams. It can be a little bit of a challenge to get the safety pin through the correct side of the seam so that you're, actually going through it and not like getting stuck in that little pocket that's made when the seam folds one way or the other. Blah, 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 blah. Anybody read any good books lately? I just finished Gone with the Wind. I had never read it before, and I've never seen the movie, but I think now I do want to see the movie. I feel really complicated about it because I am very, very, politically opposite of the main character, Scarlett. Obviously, I don't think I would be spoiling it to say that she's a Confederate. Her family owned slaves. And she still believes in that. And it's the literal polar opposite of my 21st century beliefs. Living in the north of the country, Welcome to Michigan. So, yeah. That's my thoughts, I guess. So I feel complicated about her because I still kind of like her. She's very much a strong woman, okay? But she's just very much not at all a good person. And I feel a little bit complicated every time that, she does something I admire and then she does something stupid that I think is a horrible thing. So now I am making sure that the elastic is not twisted. I have it pinned here hoping that it's not twisted, but I'm just checking to make sure. It's kind of hard because there's a drawstring in here, so it's is that ridge a folded elastic or is it the drawstring? But I think it's the drawstring. Okay, yeah. I think we are golden in here. That makes me so happy I don't have to fix that. All right. So then I'm going to pull this. Well, actually what I have to do first is, since I had this on the outside of the buttonholes to make it easier when I checked it, but I still have to move one side out the other buttonhole. So that's the thing I have to do. That way, the elastic isn't sticking out the other side. Now, I can sew the elastic together. I'm gonna do this with a ziggity-zag stitch. A ziggity-zaggity. multiple times, make sure it's good and tight. And then we can just pull on this until it recedes into that buttonhole. Huzzah! And now, oh, excuse me. Now, I'm going to go back to normal stitch, and I'm going to stitch in the ditch at the center front seam and the center back seam. That way, it helps prevent the elastic from twisting. It is also important to make sure that the elastic is evenly distributed left and right. Just tugging on it a little bit can help make sure that that's the case. And now we do the center back seam. So the center back seam does go through the drawstring. The center front seam does not. This also helps prevent the drawstring from falling out, like during the wash, or from being pulled out or whatever. Ta-da! Pajamas with fresh elastic. But it is still too warm for flannel jammies, so you won't see him wearing them for a couple months.